Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday afternoon. I've got to say I'm delighted to be joined once again by Jim Orr. You're making this something of a habit, Jim, coming in on a Friday during the pre-season. It's good. I like it. And we've got a returning contributor. The returning contributor, the lesser seen Lloyd Patrick Jepson. Welcome back, Lloyd. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, mate. It's nice to be back. Obviously, Celtic's back today, so why not make a decent wee return?
Come back for the big guns.
Come back for the big guns.
The big guns. The football is back, Jim Orr. I mean, somebody said in one of the chat groups this morning, Celtic are playing Ayr United in a bounce match, and I'd rather watch that than the Euros. Are you on that side of the fence, Jim?
No chance.
I love your honesty.
So this is 4 weeks in a row I've been on this, young man. I have to renegotiate my Acsom contract, I think.
Yeah, we'll have a look at the finer details of that,
Good
Jim.
man. Maybe loan to buy option. Anyway, it's a glorified training session tonight. I've said before in Acsom that I find it really difficult to get excited about this kind of stuff. The team that takes the field tonight will bear no relation, hopefully, to the team that takes the field in 4 weeks' time. Hopefully. I know that we'll expand on that in the next hour or so. But yeah, it's a chance for some fringe players maybe to get the manager's eye. Get some minutes in the legs, but I'm not exactly sure whose legs minutes are going to be into. So I'm not even sure who the team is tonight, who's actually there just now. So, no, it's not my cup of tea. It's also a good chance for people who maybe don't get a chance to see the team to go along, particularly home friendlies. I think that's a good opportunity. But no, I can't get excited. But if there's nothing at stake, I can't get excited. I mean, football to me is about wanting somebody to win. And if you don't want somebody to win, then you're not that bothered. And it's a friendly, so who cares? And even is it the season before last, we won the league with maybe 3 or 4 games to spare, whatever it was. And we played, was it St Mirren? Was that last season? I'm losing track. 2 seasons ago, Anges couldn't care less, basically. So, anyway, maybe I shouldn't be on today. Maybe I'm not the right person to be on.
Listen, we're all about a variety of opinions.
I mean, I hope whoever comes in, hope they do well, and I hope they catch the manager's eye. And is it for charity? Is it for something like that? No.
Well, it's to basically announce the opening of the grandstand, the new stand. I think Ayr United, since Scott Brown has gone down there, have paid a wee bit more attention, I've got to admit. And it seems as though, Lloyd, that they are trying to develop and progress as a football club, and part of that is the additional facilities. And so it's the official opening of the stand, isn't it?
Yeah, as far as I'm led to believe, it's the official opening of the stand today. And I know, obviously, I've seen Brendan Rodgers' interview on Celtic TV this week where he was talking about how it's good for Celtic go around all these other Scottish clubs for pre-season. So it gives fans an opportunity at that side of the country to obviously go down and watch Celtic. So all good. But like Jim said, it's pre-season though, so does the result really matter? Not really.
Am I the only one getting excited about this? Let us know in the comments if it's a team playing in the green and white. I get excited. Right, there you go. I've said it. And yeah, you're right, Jim. The team, the starting 11 tonight will bear no resemblance to the first competitive game of the new season. I'm going to just dive right in with Ridiculizer because I know there are plenty of frustrated Celtic fans out there. Ridiculizer says a disgrace to be heading into pre-season weaker. Zero excuses. Right. But again, this is probably where I jump the fence a wee bit, Jim, and I say, well, let's just look at the game that we're playing. It is a glorified bounce game. It's a training session. I spoke yesterday about a possible strongest 11 that we could play, and today we're going to go through 1 to 11, and that will allow us to talk about the different areas of the field as well. But before I do that, Jim, you're into your numbers. You know your numbers, and when we speak about signing players for extortionate amounts and for extortionate wages, you're often the voice of reason to say, you know what, we can't do that. That's not financially viable. There has been a spike in the share price at Celtic, and obviously what then happens is Celtic fans will be asking the question, why is that happening? Is there a takeover? What's going to go on here? What do you make of it, Jim? It's the highest the share price has been sitting in 24 years. What's just round the corner, if anything?
I don't know. I think follow the money. I think everyone tells you to follow the money. So there must be some reason behind this. I mean, I imagine that we're going to post the best ever financial results there's ever been. We'll get the zillions and the hundreds and the money in the bank, to quote the young chap. So yeah, the company, if you call it the company, is in a very good place at the moment. I thought it was interesting when I saw something on social media about Dermot Desmond's shareholding, because people talked about getting annoyed with Fergus, who invested 9 million to get the guts of 40 million back. So we made about 30 million. And you're thinking, Dermot Desmond, hold my beer. Hold on. Because from what I saw during the week on X, if it's true, I think he invested something like 30-ish million and took about 7-ish million out. So his net investment's about 20 odd million, and these shares are worth over 100. So
Yeah,
80 million on paper, no bad. So no, I've no idea what's behind it. It could be something big, it could be nothing. Who knows how these things work? But yeah, it's kind of. I think it just shows the fact that off the field, as a company, in terms of the finances, are doing really well, but that doesn't reflect what's happening on the field at times. Certainly not last season. I think that's the big issue that we have. That the point Ridiculizer makes, that I'm not panicking yet. I mean, I said last week, I said that the kick-off's now 4 weeks, is it? Is it 4 weeks till he starts? 4 weeks on Sunday?
Yeah, 4 weeks jump.
4 weeks on Sunday. If we're weaker than we were in the cup final, something's wrong. And it's maybe that's the time to start asking questions. At the moment, for all we know, and I'm going to use the phrase ducks in a row again because somebody got annoyed with it, so I'm going to keep using that. Ducks in a row. They're all just waiting to go bang, 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 and all these new signings come in. And that's what I hope is going to happen. I might be blindly optimistic, but I'm willing to give them to the Kilmarnock game, which is on the Sunday, which somebody pointed out to me last week is because Kilmarnock's in Europe. As if I should know that, because I don't follow Kilmarnock, and how would I know that? Because I don't pay much attention. Another thing, we talked about the supercomputer and the fact that it throws out fixtures.
yeah.
Why didn't the supercomputer factor that in as well then? That whoever's playing in Europe, because the champions have to play first. If they're going to move
100%.
stuff for TV, everything should be played at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. But we live in the modern times where football's on TV, they're going to pick games to show, which is absolutely fine, don't have an issue with that. But the first game you have to show is the champion, whoever they may be, not just in Celtic, the champions, which are mostly Celtic, should kick off the season. So the supercomputer should throw it out to say they're going to play St Johnson, whatever, they're not involved in Europe or whatever. That's the game, because we've factored that in. So they didn't do that. So they're an early wee rant there at 12:30. So hey-ho.
Quite right, Jim, because I'm not going to rant about this, but I am going to talk about the state of Scottish football, and it is with no disrespect whatsoever to the individual clubs. I know that some clubs in the country are not run the way they should be. For example, I'm going to give Inverness Cali Thistle a wee shout out, because I think that when you look at the way over the last few seasons, and I'm sure, if anybody's tuning in with any kind of liking for Inverness, you'll agree with this, they've been shambolically ran in the last few seasons, to the point where they're sitting in the third tier of Scottish football, staring down the barrel of administration unless they get some new investment. So there are clubs that don't do themselves any favours, and I totally get it. I use Hibs as an example where, you look at the last 10 years, 10 managers in 10 years, and one of them was Neil Lennon, who was in charge for 3 years. So it just shows you how trigger happy they are. When things aren't going well, there's no medium, never mind long-term vision or plan. So some of the clubs need to do better, but we're in a situation, for me, that Scottish football and what holds us back are the authorities, Lloyd. It's the SFA, it's the league, it's the admin at the very, very top, where we've criticised Mike Mulroney in the past. Jim and I had a good discussion, probably a rant. I think we could call it a rant, Jim.
Semi-rant,
a semi-rant. We're talking about, his views on VAR, his views on Hampden Park, his views on the head of referees being a million miles away from mine. And I'm not speaking for anybody but myself here. But as a Scottish football fan who invests in the game and has done for, since 1987. So I've watched Celtic now in 5 decades. That's scary. I do have a strong view in it, and I think we're shambolically run as an from the association and from the league. And that is the one thing that every time I see something like a spike in shares, I'm going, right, what's going on here that we don't know about? And it could well be that, it's a perfectly planned situation where the mustachioed one simply walks along and then cashes his shares in and gets his £100 million, even though he has spoken about the shares going to his son and staying in the family and all that. You remember that around about the Ange departure time, gave an interview. So at this stage, Lloyd, I'm like everybody else. I'm in the dark as to why it's spiked. But what it does show, going back to something Jim said, we are an incredibly well-run business, right? But as a football fan, all that stuff should be par for the course. We shouldn't really be worried about that kind of stuff. I go back to late 80s, being a fanzine reader, a young kid, and I want to talk and read about Paul McStay and Frank McAvenny and all the exciting things about Celtic. And all I'm reading about is the board. Guys like Jim Orr, sack the board, right? But what it did is it probably, as the minor strike, politicised me at a young age. That kind of put me onto other areas of football and looking under the bonnet and saying, what's going on at this football club here? But what it does signify is that we're in the rudest financial health we've ever been in. But I brought up Ridiculizer's comment for a reason, because most fans just want to see it on the park, Lloyd, and that's the frustration, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's 100% the frustration, because as a football fan, that's all you want to see. It's what's on the park, who you're going to sign, who's leaving the club. And I've never, until maybe 2012, when a certain team perished, then I never bothered about football finances or nothing like that. I only wanted to know what player was coming in, what their shirt number was. Shirt's going to cost so much. But I've heard share price is get number 7 for Lewis Palmer this season, so I'm sure a lot of folk are going to get that in the back of their jersey. But no, it's just baffling. These things don't matter to the normal football fan. They just want to go into the stadium, watch their team play, and then go home.
You should be able to trust the custodians, Jim. I think that's what we're saying here. You should be able to, and because we're a couple of decades into a recovery of Celtic since, obviously, in fact, 3 decades into it, since Ferguson McCann took over, you should be able to trust that all the dots, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed and all this kind of stuff. Financially, we're in great health. You know that the big sponsorship deals come in, the kit manufacturing deals come in. We sell our season tickets out every single season. We play the trading game when it comes to players. We're always making money on players. All that side of thing, right? You should maybe always have one eye on it, but it's not something that we should be discussing time and time and time again. But when you're sitting here, albeit a bounce game, going into your first game, and we're £2 million up, we're £2 million in the positive when it comes to transfer fees in this pre-season. I can understand the frustrations. I'm not panicking, Jim, but I do understand the frustrations.
Yeah, I should totally understand the frustration, because people want to spend money and spend it now or spend it last week. That's the nature of the beast. And I think we have to get the right deals. And I know that we assume people are paid to do this job, so they'll be judged on whether they do a good job or not. And I think it's still fairly early in the transfer window, and that's why I said I think 4 weeks' time is, for me, the first cut-off point with this. That if we are weaker than we are the cup final, I'd be asking serious questions. And then the next cut-off point is obviously the end of the month when the transfer window closes. So, and I know transfers are far more complex than they were 40 years ago, where you were signing maybe players from Dumbarton or Kilmarnock and they live locally and they didn't have agents, and it was fairly straightforward to go and sign someone. Now it's more complex, far more complex, but notwithstanding that, it's more complex for everyone. And other teams, I'm sure, will sign players and maybe leave us behind in doing this. Whether they sign the right players or not, that will be judged in time. And it's complex. And I know, I've said this before, I don't know if I'm the voice of reason, but I think you've also got to remember that it's dead easy to talk in vagueness, spend money. But you then have to say, well, deal with specifics. And I mentioned this last week, just to repeat myself again. The Adam Idah one, I think it's dead interesting for a number of different things, because we don't have an option to buy, apparently. That's the kind of common, what's getting said. And then you say, well, did we not have an option to buy because we weren't offered an option to buy, or did we choose not to have an option to buy? I don't know the answer to that question. But you've got 2 different scenarios then, because if we could have asked for an option to buy, somebody potentially is costing us millions of pounds if we eventually buy them.
Yep.
You know, if that option to buy was never there, there's nothing we could have done about it. Mm-hmm. And the option to buy thing, I think, is quite an interesting thing, because if I'm the selling club, I'm not so sure I would give an option to buy at all. Because you take, I don't know, Mickey Johnson, good example. 6 months ago, if you'd have said, we're going to put Mickey Johnson on loan, do we give the team he's going to an option to buy or not? If we'd have said, give him an option to buy, what number would you put on that?
Exactly. What would the figure have
million?
been at that time?
$1 million, maybe?
Couple of million max. Yeah. Yep.
I'd have said $1 million. I'd have think if you'd have said to most Celtic fans, if you get $1 million for Mickey Johnson, you're doing really well. So we could have said at the time, who is he? West Bromwich Albion. West Brom, you can have Mikey, you pay his wages next 6 months. And if you want to buy him, you can buy him. And the answer is £1 million. And we are locked in to that £1 million. Why would you do that? That's a mad thing to do. Because what could happen is what just happened, where Mikey Johnson, we could get twice, 3 times that, 4 times that, excuse me, £3-4 million. So we'd have been mad to give an option to buy at that point in time. So I'm not exactly sure why clubs give that option to buy, unless there's something else linked into this, a contract thing that's more nuanced than this. I don't really know. And the Adam Idah thing is, if we had been offered that, and they said, because we think the answer was, 3.5 or 4 at the time, we thought that might be the option to buy at the time. And somebody said, no thanks, we'll just leave it. And Idah comes in and rips it up. And now we're talking a number higher than 6. And that's what I said last year. See, if you put that to a fan, not this vague, spend money, get Idah, and you say, okay, we need to go more than 6. Would you go 7? Aye. Because what I said is, I think because we've got the money, we should push the boat out a wee bit, but not ridiculously. So if you say, would you go 7? Aye. Would you go 15? No. Okay, so what number would you go? What number are you comfortable with? Rather than spend, I'm putting this to you, whoever you are, a fan, tell me the number that you're comfortable with. Because if we don't sign him, and we sign somebody else, and he doesn't hit the ground running, you should say, you should have paid 15 for him either. Because it's no real decisions to make. And we don't have to deal with the consequences of what happens next. So we have to be sensible. And even though we might lose people, as long as we lose people having done the best we can. And I think 7, maybe even 8 million at a push for Idah. But I don't think, if you said to me 6 months ago, we can buy this guy Adam Idah for £8 million, you think, are you mad? So I think there's a bit of common sense in there somewhere. It's disappointing if you don't get someone. But any transfer is a risk. Who knows? We could sign somebody tomorrow for £1 million, like Matt O'Reilly, turns to be a superstar.
Yeah.
We sign somebody for $6 million tomorrow, turns out to be not very good. Who knows? And I've mentioned my pal Nick Kuhn. We've got something like £8 million wrapped up in him. Wages, transfer fees. You can't keep doing that. Who's to say that Nick Kuhn, and I'm not saying he's a bad player, he's maybe not set Heather on fire, but I think there's a player there, and hopefully kicks on next season. But just use him as an example. He's not an exceptional player, but we wrapped up £8 million. So you can't keep doing that. And I'm sure there'll be comments, because I don't look at the comments coming in. He's that's him again. Don't spend money, be negative. You have to be sensible. That's all I'm saying, is be sensible. And sometimes you'll get your targets, and sometimes you won't. But you'll be judged on, I think, 4 weeks' time, and then 8 weeks' time. And if you haven't delivered, you haven't done your job. And we don't want to hear, it's been really difficult, to get players, and you have to wait to the end of the window, and we're so close. We don't want to hear that. You're there to do a job, and if you don't bring these players in, then you'll get the blame, whoever you are. Because I'm actually not very sure who you are. Because somebody said, there was X again, that it's the manager and the chief executive and somebody else. Who's the other person, Paul? His name escapes me.
Jay Lefebvre.
Sounds like Inspector Clouseau. Jay Lefebvre. So basically, we've got these 3 guys, and one's a lawyer, so straight away you've got a kind of cautious guy there. So we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. We have to be sensible about who we sign, how much we go to, because there is a level that you think, I'm uncomfortable going beyond that. And for Adam Idah, I think 8 million, personally, speaking myself, is the most I would go. And I think that's paying 2 million over the odds, I think. And we could have maybe got him for 4 if we had an option to buy. We don't have an option to buy, and the bit I'm saying is, why was that? Do we know why that was? Because if we didn't take an option to buy at that point in time, somebody's cost us a lot of money if we eventually buy the player. So that's why I'm saying that I don't understand why the selling club would ever give an option to buy. It just seems a bit bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the January, we've touched on it a couple of times. He was in discussions with Verona. He was going to Italy, and there was an option to buy £3.5 million. By the way, big shout out to Jim Moore for showing us the merchandise on the mug, and to Lloyd Patrick Jepson for showing the T-shirt that is part of the Acsom range as well.
Just to clarify, we are contractually obliged to do this at least 4 times during the show.
Yes, that's correct.
At least 4 times. Yep, absolutely.
That's
the axe.
That's my fourth. That's my fourth.
I've still got another 3 to get in.
Yeah, you have. Actually, I'm quite disappointed in your performance so far with that. But yeah, room for improvement. And also, thank you to Paddy Lavery. Paddy is looking at the tagline and saying, what on earth? There you go. Look at that. He's making up for it with the old bonnet. There we go. The Acsom bonnet. Paddy, thank you for proofreading my tagline. There you can see that it is all manual. And I was missing a rogue do. There we go. Sorted that out. You get away with nothing on here. Nothing. So Adam Idah, lined up for Verona, £3.5 million. And you think about the fact that we know there was a phone call on the Monday to the agent, right? Adam spoke about it.
I love this. There's a phone call. Okay, right, hold on. I need to pay attention to your phone call.
It sets up so well.
There's a phone call on the Monday.
Hold on, fluff up the cushions.
You fluff them up.
A story here, right? Okay.
The agent speaks to Adam, and obviously Adam's up for it. And by Wednesday, the deal is done. So between the Monday and the Wednesday, if you put yourself in Brendan Rodgers' shoes, he's talking to someone he knows. It's a contact he knows from his time at Leicester, down south. And so, I'm interested in the player. Let's get it done. At that point, no, Lloyd, Brendan Rodgers removes himself from the situation. He's not negotiating fees, wages, or any of that kind of stuff. That then goes to the CEO, which in itself, we don't have a director of football. We don't have a head of recruitment. That goes to the CEO to deal with that. So as Jim says, somebody's next on the chopping block. And I'm going to say it's no Brendan Rodgers' because he's basically said to the club, I want this player. Right, we'll bring him in on loan, but the club have done the deal. And now, and we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago with JP, and a lot of people scoffed at 8 million. I'm pretty sure Norwich will be pushing for that. And it might not be the initial transfer fee. I think we might pay 6.5 up front, something along those lines. There's going to be add-ons, isn't there? Why did we lowball them at 4? Well, Southampton have lowballed us at 20 for Matt O'Reilly. It's just the way football works, right? If they're going to do that, we're going to chance our mitt. We might go up to, say, 5 and then say, what about 5 and Mikey Johnson? There could be loads of negotiations at this point. But as Jim says, and it's a good point, Lloyd, and it's not trying to be negative here, if we end up paying what you might think's over the odds, 7.5, 8 million quid, somebody's to blame because they were willing to have a loan to buy when they were negotiating with Verona in the same month.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you kind of wonder why that wasn't put on place in January. If they were willing to do it with Verona, why not do it with us? Is it because it was so last minute trying to get the deal done? But as Jim rightly said, you would happily go and pay up to 8 million for Idah because you know what you get from the player. So because you know what you get from the player, it's not really going to be as much a risk unless it's somebody unknown, or else even say Amiovski, for instance, if they came in even anywhere near that fee and they just didn't hit the ground running. But we know with Adam Idah, he can come in. He's obviously scored big goals for us already last season, and then he could hit the ground running again this season as second striker. But you wonder why we get round the table at 4. It starts the discussion as to, right, are we going to sell this player? So I'm actually quite happy Celtic went in with a low offer to start with because they've started the discussion with Norwich.
Yeah.
Right, this is who we want. What are you willing to sell him for? So the discussions have started, and hopefully soon he will be our player.
Just to clarify, I'm not happily willing to go to 8. I'm going there with gritted teeth because I think I'm happy to go 4 because I think that it's literally what he's worth. It's 4. I also think that he made a fantastic contribution last season. As I said, no Idah, no double. So 6 to me, given his contribution, is fine. I think that's as much as I would be willing to go. Anything more than that, it's done through gritted teeth to actually get the player in. So that extra 2 million is because we have the extra money there. So we'll go that wee extra. And also, it depends what other teams want him as well. If
that's the
interested in him.
if
Nobody
it's
else
just
interested,
Celtic,
offer them 4. You know,
Mhm.
so
If it's just
that's what
Celtic's
you do.
interested, then yeah.
Aye, and that's why I kind of don't pay much attention to what's happening in social media about people, getting angry about things or whatever, because that's how business works. As you said, Paul, you don't wander in and say, we'll offer you 8, they'll say give us 12, and you settle on 10. Go in at 4, they'll say 8, we'll settle on 6. That's, simple terms, that's what you're looking for. So, but yeah, I think we're having to, and also teams know we've got the money, so they're going to be maybe pushing things up a wee bit as well. But notwithstanding all of that, as ridiculous as I said, he's a bit panicky just now. I'll be a bit panicky in 4 weeks' time. Panic is not the right word. I'll be really concerned in 4 weeks' time, and I'll be extra concerned in 8 weeks' time if we haven't delivered quality players for the manager, because all we've just done for the second year in a row is have a title race that it's entirely of our own making, and that's unacceptable. Unacceptable in any season, but more unacceptable because of how much we have sitting in the bank and how much is going to come into the bank.
Yeah. What have we achieved by offering £4 million? Right. So what we've learned from that offer is that Norwich are willing to sell, just not for £4 million. And Adam Idah wants to come to Celtic permanently. So that's what we've learned from throwing in a £4 million bid. And we'll see how that develops. Now, again, right, someone said to me yesterday in the YouTube comments, put your pom-poms away, right, because I'm getting called a cheerleader here. I think that...
Acsom pom-poms, you missed a trick. You missed a trick.
Oh, I can picture them. I can picture them.
Is Lloyd looked down there to just pick some up?
I was just actually looking to see if I had any, but I don't.
That's it.
Who knows? Listen,
disappointed
on
in
that
that
link under the video, they might be on that shop. But what I would say, if there's a defence, what I would say is that maybe in the future we'll be sitting up at Barnazat and Design interviewing an ex-Celtic player. Let's say it's Kieran Tierney in a few months' time. He's up in Glasgow and we somehow managed to coax him into coming and giving us a wee interview. And he's sitting around that round table that's a bit wobbly and a bit sugary, right? And we ask him what's happening, and he says, I was going to come until the injury. There's going to be things that we learn in the future about deals that just about happened, right? And obviously the Kieran Tierney one is one of those examples. The Scott McKenna thing, I know he divides opinion, I get it, right? But unless he brings his wage demands down, he's not coming to Celtic. But it might still happen. He may bring his wage demands down. I don't know. But I don't think we've been sitting inactive since the transfer window opened, and before. I don't think we have been sitting inactive, and Brendan Rodgers will not tolerate it, really. I think that's the big thing. He won't tolerate it. And I'm going to read through some of these because we're getting mixed kind of views on this, and we are going to get to the Ayr United game. I'm going to start off with you and Boy Martin, because, Jim, you might have to explain to the audience here what a Meekler of the month is, but I think you and Boy Martin probably wins it so far because he's never at home. He's always travelling about. You ask him where he's watching the game, and he's somewhere in Europe, not normally where he lives in Dunoon. We'll be watching the game tonight at Paddy's Point and play a flamenca. Well, good for you, Ewan. I'll be watching it in Dunfermline. But Meekler of the month, Jim, what is it?
Meekler of the month used to be a contributor called Natasha Meikle, who is an excellent contributor to Acsom, going to bigger and better things. And she basically spends all the time on holiday. So basically, in the very odd occasion that somebody on the Acsom group chat actually went somewhere, they had a chance to win the Meekler of the month, because otherwise she won it every month, because one week she's in the States, next week she's in Bahamas and whatever. So and post all these pictures of all these glamorous places, and you're posting pictures of Cowdenbeath and stuff like that. So it's kind of
Lochgelly.
That's what that was. So you and Boy Martin's up there for Lochgelly, of course. Second that month. Runner up was Lochgelly.
Yeah.
First was Rio, second was Lochgelly. That's how it went most months. And then sometimes somebody would go somewhere exotic, and then all of a sudden Natasha only went to some place like France. That didn't get as good a mark as somebody who went to New York or something. They won Meekler of the month. So that's how it went.
Yeah.
The old days, the good old days, when life was simpler.
Life was simpler and we spent money.
Much simpler.
Paddy elaborate. Here we go. Frank, wrong side of the bed this morning. He's talking about Frank Brennan. I'm not in the dig at you, Frank. I'm going to bring this up, right? Because I'm not...
What does that mean? What does that mean? Sorry.
Well, Frank Brennan might have got out the wrong side of the bed. That's what Paddy's saying. It's a wee friendly Dune and Air. Right, I'm not going to say it. And so, Who is it exactly? Who really gives a duck? I don't know if that's something to do with the ducks in a row you spoke about earlier.
That's Frank. Okay, that's Frank. All right, okay.
About how we line up in this regard. Well, I do, Frank. It's Celtic, right? Celtic, and I'm interested, and I want to know who's going to line up, and we're even going to talk about who might line up, Frank. But all friendly banter, ladies and gents. Joe Hamilton, Brendan is the boss, and he will strengthen the squad. Patience, says Joe. Patience. Yeah, absolutely. And Jungle Lion, great to see you. Jungle Lion likes a holiday as well, I've got to say. He does. He likes a wee holiday. But obviously, he also enjoys going out to, I don't know, do you call it a man cave? Are we allowed to call it a man cave? Women can have
cave,
caves.
man shed.
Person cave.
Person cave, right. He goes out to the person cave. And we see the videos and the
person facility.
Absolutely. Let's not be demeaning to a cave. And we have promised Jungle Lion that we're going to do a live show from the person facility at his back garden. And hopefully it'll happen one day. 2 seasons in a row and Celtic are weaker. Looks like the board need them to win the league. Need them to win the league to kickstart again.
Weaker at the moment. Can't argue with that. Let's see where they're in 4 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you look at the team last season, if we looked at the strongest 11, which Brendan identified in the run-in, and they'd done us so well. And they won as a double, of course. We're 3 men down, right? Joe Hart, I think, is a man. We're 3 men down. Joe Hart, Paolo Bernard. I'm just checking.
We're 3 people down. Yes,
3 people down. 3 players. We're 3 players down. Paolo Bernardo and Adam Idah, right?
Is that in the men's team? Just to clarify, just to jump in there.
I don't know. Can we call it the men's team?
There's a men's team, there's a women's team. No, there is 2 teams. Just clarify.
I'm just not sure. I'm scared.
Is it the under-18s team? Is it the 15s
No.
team?
It's the first team. It's the men's first team.
Yeah.
Give it its proper thing, mate.
Brendan's team. There you go. It's Brendan's team. So we're 3 down. Absolutely. So we are weaker as we sit here going into this game against there. We're weaker. And we're going to run through, as I say, each individual position with one eye on tonight, but also one eye on what do we have to do to ensure that when we go into the first competitive fixture and then we go into the first European fixture, Patrick McGilp on Tuesday said it was 76 days to the first Champions League game. 76. So that'll be 73 days now, Lloyd, until the first Champions League game. And we need to ensure...
It's Christmas as well.
I know. It's all going to catch up with us soon enough. And we need to ensure that we're no weaker going into these games. So we're going to be having a look at that as well. Now, Stephen Stafford, it's a pleasure that you're getting involved. It's a pleasure to see you on the YouTube. I play Lowell in the holding role. Give him a chance of breaking through. I'd also like to see Ben McPherson and Mitchell Frame play. We need quality in, but so give youth a better pathway. I don't know what happened there. Maybe an extra wee word. Maybe you've done a paddy on me here and thrown in an extra word. And I get what you're meaning. Let's put some of the youth into the team. Yesterday we were talking about the strongest 11. So let's have a look at that. Someone says to me that Rio's no back. He's not going to be playing tonight. He's on his way back from Japan. We've seen some videos, Lloyd, of him out there training with one of his buddies. So talk me through who you think's going to start for Celtic tonight.
Do we have a goalkeeper for tonight?
Well, we've actually got 2.
We get 2? All right.
Seagrass was told, get yourself back, son. We're your employer. You are coming back for pre-season.
That's the same Seagrass that Turnman said the other week. That he wasn't coming back. That's Seagrass.
Right. So we've got Seagrass and Bain, and of course you've got the younger guys as well.
Well, I think obviously, we'll all know that Scott Bain will probably start in goals then, if that's the case. Back 4 should be interesting because obviously Ralston's and Johnson's both away on holiday still, and Taylor's away on holiday. So I think obviously Frame and McPherson could come in there, and then obviously you'll have Scales and Welsh probably as the centre backs.
I said yesterday, right? Although I agree with the point that was just made there about throwing youth players into a game like this, because if you're not going to do it, when will you do it? I looked at Ben McPherson right back. He was involved in the pre-season last time round in Japan, and then of course Mitchell Frame actually played in the Champions League last season. So
and not been seen since.
Never been seen since. I think if I was to pick a team, I would definitely have a hybrid of first-team players and young players coming in. And the fullbacks would probably be two positions that I would give them a run. Yesterday, the team that I read out was Scott Bain in goals with Stephen Welsh at right back, Liam Scales at left back, and your central defensive partnership of Lagerbielke and Nawrocki. But I was looking at the strongest possible team. The team I would play, I'm going to go along those kind of lines. I would definitely bring in some of the young guys. Ben McPherson at right back, maybe even Adam Montgomery at left back, if he is fit, of course. Scott Bain in goals, two centre-halves would be Welsh and Scales. Jim, I'm going to come to you and you're going to say, I'm not that bothered, it's just a friend, I'm going to be watching the Euros.
Do you know that feeling when you're about to sit an exam and they say, turn your papers over now, and you do that and you realise you don't know the answers to any questions at all.
Just write anything down.
And you said, who do you think will play tonight? I thought Ian Celtic. That was my answer. That was all I was going to say. I would play loads of young guys and I'd give the first team guys who are back some minutes, maybe 45 minutes of the young team and 45 minutes of the other guys. And whoever's there, because I mean, obviously people like Callum and Tony. I'm assuming all the guys who played in the Euros are not back yet. I'm sure the other people. Is Arthur Johnson not still out at the Copa America? He's still out.
Yeah, he's still out. Yeah,
finalist.
They're still. So he's not there. Tony's, Greg Taylor, all the Euro guys will be back. I'm sure there'll be some guys from maybe nursing injuries, whatever. So, yeah, play as many young guys as possible first half, and then more experienced guys to get a bit of fitness at the end of the day. I mean, Scott Bain or Siegrist or the other guy, what's his name?
Jerry Taylor. Jerry.
You know, kind of. I'd play the young guy then. I mean, because if Siegrist, I had no idea Siegrist was back. I thought he'd left. That's news
so
to
did
me.
he, Jim. So did he.
Right. So that's an exam question I didn't know. I had no idea he was back. So that must be an awkward situation to try and manage this guy. And did not see some kind of disparaging things at the club or something?
Well, he basically said, "I'll not be back." And as a Celtic fan, I don't think I think it lacked class. Because Celtic, have given you an opportunity there. I don't think he took the opportunity. Now, someone might tell me that there were personal issues, off the field issues, but if you're going to come to Celtic for 2 seasons and play 2 games, no game last, not a kick of the ball last season.
I think Siegrist is an interesting one because when we signed him, you thought he's good. We like him. He'll take over. Was Joe Hart there at the time?
Yeah, Joe Hart was there. Yeah.
So he'll take over for Joe Hart. He's good. He's got all the attributes of a good goalkeeper. Then disappeared, and we never saw him again, apart from the 1 or 2 games that you said there. There must be more to that story.
Yeah.
Than we know about. And then you saw wee clips of nights out, and he was right up the middle of them. He was like partying away.
He was.
And then you think, well, obviously he must go. And actually, the fact when was it the league game or the cup game? Was he not the first to embrace Joe Hart, something like that? So maybe there's a bit of
cup game, Jim.
Yeah,
cup games. So there's obviously a bit of like an boy. So obviously maybe he's quite a popular guy, like Scott Bain, in the changing room.
That old statement.
For whatever reason, never get there. And I also thought it'd be quite funny that because you thought to yourself, if somebody leaves the club, they always put a message, thanks for the fans, but we've never seen them. So that would look a bit odd if he says, thanks for all your support. And we're saying, who are you? What? So I think that was maybe difficult for him to actually say anything like that and just disappeared. But to say what he said, yeah, that lacked a bit of class. Maybe he should have said something like, well, things didn't work out for whatever reason. I love my stay at the club and I wish you all the best in the future. Love and kisses. Benji, is his name? Benji. And my way, and that's it. To say I'll not be back, very kind of anti-Arnold Schwarzenegger of him. I'll not be back. So that was a bit strange.
I thought it was, but unless somebody can tell me different, and something off the field prevented him from putting his gloves on more than twice in two seasons. You're a non-contributing playing for me, and it's one of my bugbears. People who are just hanging about the club, not contributing. Get out and play football somewhere else, be that on a loan. Listen, in James McCarthy's case, tear up the contract, move on. Transfer them. If you're not playing, move on.
So what would James McCarthy's message be when he leaves? What's he going to say?
I don't think James does. Does he do social media?
Oh, he does. No, he does social media.
Does he?
Is
he on Instagram?
It's on Instagram.
Right.
He's just reappeared on Instagram.
Oh.
So there's one for the chat room. What would James McCarthy's parting message be to the Celtic fans?
I just
Hi,
think
hi, I'm James.
you've
I'm now
got
leaving.
to leave with a bit of class. I mean,
Correct.
the Celtic fan base, generally speaking, if you look at our comments on James McCarthy on this show, we had a bit of crack about guys who just don't turn up. They're just having a car share, but instead of going to the ground, they go somewhere else. And where that came from, I remember there was a game, and I'm going to say it was either Hearts or Falkirk, right? Because Stevie Fulton was involved. And they were to go to the game, but they had been told, I don't know, maybe in the hotel prior to going to the ground, the guys who weren't stripped. So there was maybe 3 or 4 of them, and they were all in the same car. So instead of going to the game, they went to the pub, right? And I think they were all fined, and some of them were sold. The manager went off his head. It was probably Jim Jeffries. And it's just this cashier thing. If you're not contributing, what do you do day to day? And it must be demoralising for any professional footballer of any level of experience. And for the best, for them and for the club, move on. Benji Siegrist thought he had moved on. The gaffer got him back in, which I spoke about yesterday. I think it's a good thing. He doesn't suffer fools. Haksabanovic has started his nonsense on Instagram and he's away. Bernabe wasn't really showing it in the games. Attitudinal. He missed that. Remember, he missed that meeting. He missed that an important meeting before a game. On you go, son. He's away to Brazil. And I think that Brendan Rodgers will deal with that. Any kind of, not even incompetence, but that lack of respect for him, his teammates, the fan base, they'll be away. What are you going to do?
That's another good example there. So, but Bernabe's another good example of that. How much did he cost? Was it 3.5 or something?
Four,
like that?
Just under 4. Yeah, just
plus,
under 4.
Plus whatever wages. So we must have got maybe the guts of 6 or 7 million wrapped up in him. And that's why you can't be rash. Anyway, sorry, Paul.
No, you're right. And if you were to look at the money you've got wrapped up in all these non-contributing players, Haksabanovic would have been one of them as well. Benji Siegrist came in as a free agent. So his wages, if you look at some of the salary websites that are generally quite accurate, he was on the same wages as Joe Hart. Benji Siegrist was on the same wages as Joe Hart.
I don't believe that. That can't be right. That can't be right.
15 grand. 15 grand a week. That's what he's on. And he's still on it. He's still on it. Right. Now, there's a guy that's played 2 games of football, 180 minutes of football, 2 League Cup games, and he thinks he can be snidey on Instagram. So Brendan Rodgers has said, back to come. What are you going to do, though, Lloyd, if he starts the first game of the season against Kelly with being on the bench?
There's only one Benji Siegrist.
All is forgiven, Benji.
Such a daft name, Benji. Can't you call him Benji? That's just a ridiculous name for a guy. Anyway, sorry.
Generally, what would you do if you actually seen him starting in the first game of the season? No goalkeeper.
Then you panic.
Generally, Jim, I think you would panic at that point.
Yes,
I think you would. There's no way in God's great earth that can happen.
I'm going to clip that. What I would do, Lloyd, is I would look through the comments to see what ridiculisers are saying to it. That's what I would do if that happened. Now, Michael Moffat, the testimonial last year, Ayr versus Celtic, big Celtic fan, and he got a testimonial game, and we did a wee interview when we went for a wander around Paradise one morning with Michael. I don't know, were you there that day, Lloyd? Might have been the week or before.
Week after, I think I was.
The week after. And the reason I'm saying that I think it will be a hybrid team, Celtic took a very strong side to that game. There was another testimonial game, I think, up in Dundee, maybe a month or 2 later, and Celtic took a very strong side in terms of first team players. Kobayashi, for example, played, James McCarthy, Mikey Johnston. There were first team players playing in these games. And I think the same will happen tonight. There's a respect that Brendan Rodgers spoke about helping clubs like Ayr United and Queen's Park, obviously, on Wednesday night at Lesser Hampden. And I think that we will take a fair chunk of first-team players, but there will be some youngsters in there as well. If we move into the midfield, I was told this morning Hatate's back on his way home from Japan, Lloyd, so he won't play. So I yesterday said that we've got Iwata available, we've got Matt O'Reilly available. I'm going to agree with the previous commenter and say play Boss and Laval, because you know what? There needs to be a pathway. Yeah. And if you're putting somebody out on loan and they go out for a year and they perform really well by all accounts, you've got to reward them for that, surely. Have a look at them. See if we're going to keep them this season. So there's my midfield. I've changed it up a wee bit. I'm going to go Matt O'Reilly. For everybody in here, I'm pretty sure they'll love 40 minutes or half an hour of Matt O'Reilly. Bosun Lowell and Tomoki Iwata. That's my midfield. What about you, Lloyd?
Yeah, I would maybe go Lowell, Iwata, and maybe give Home a little run out to see what he's got as well. Just maybe give a little bit of rest in Matt O'Reilly's legs, because it's been a hard season for him. So
it's been a difficult one. Are you turning over the exam paper, Jim, and thinking I'm not quite sure? D.
Young boy Kelly. Young boy Kelly not still there.
Yeah,
yes. I forgot about Kelly actually.
Yes.
I'd play Kelly, and now that Lloyd said Home, I'd play Home, and I'd play Iwata and somebody else. I don't know if I'd risk Matt O'Reilly in these two friendlies coming up. I think, given the chances I may be leaving at some point in time, so I think I'd leave him for the glamour friendlies in the States. I wouldn't play O'Reilly. I wouldn't play. Who's the other one you said?
Jim, I thought we'd agreed in front of Paul not to mention O'Reilly leaving.
I know.
I wasn't on that week. After
the show, I'm going to switch the lights off and just console myself. But
I've also got dispensation because of my age. I can say anything basically. So I wouldn't risk O'Reilly at Ayr or at Lesser Hampden. I wouldn't do that. But I just Kelly, yeah, Home, yeah, Iwata, yeah, and another young guy who I don't know about yet. Him, whoever that is. So that's
let's have a look at some of the B team players then, because we were talking about goalkeepers, and Toby Oluwayemi, very, very highly rated when we signed him from Tottenham Hotspur, you'll remember, quite a few seasons ago now. But he's now 21. He's had 2 spells out on loan. He's been in Austria and Ireland, never really kicked on. But if it's going to happen for him, it has to happen now. And I know that goalkeepers are different. You know, they can develop later. They have longer careers. I get all that. But behind him, you've got Josh Clark and Kai McLean, both 19 years of age. So if anyone's going to get a shout, you would think it would be Toby. And then you start, and Joe Morrison, of course, he's 20 as well. He's in the squad. You then start looking at some of the defenders that we've got available. Dane Murray just signed a new contract, made his debut, obviously, in Ange Postecoglou's first game against Midtjylland, thrown right in because of Nir Bitton getting sent off. Played the following game, never seen him again. 2 really bad injuries he's had to fight back from. And we've got plenty of other guys that you might have heard of. Liam Bonatig, who came in as a signing from Australia, I think before Marco Tilio. And you've also got guys like Ben McPherson, as you've mentioned before, who we're aware of. Moving into the midfield, Daniel Kelly, still 18. He's contracted up to the end of this year. And I'm going to chat a wee bit about him because I'm going to link him into the situation with Rocco Vata. There's the klaxon. It's taken me 47 minutes to mention Rocco. But I think I'm just going to accept defeat on this one, Jim. He's away to Watford. 4-year deal. Were the club waiting until that deal was done before finalising a deal with Daniel Kelly? My thinking is, if Rocco was going to force the club to push the envelope in terms of wages, we might have to pay the same to Daniel Kelly.
Before answering that question, Bosun Law, yeah, he has to play. I forgot him because he's such a cool name. Play him just for the cool name he has. Yeah, I mean, the Rocco Vata thing, yeah, the Klaxon thing, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, according to social media, he's on, is it 25 grand a week or something like that, or whatever. So,
mind blowing.
And again, you know, no doubt I'll get grief from the chat room again. We can't pay however old he is, 19, 20, whatever it is, 25 grand a week. You can't, and that's just, from a club like Celtic, that's just lunacy for me. We can't compete with that because you pay him 25 grand, then you've got virtually 75% of the squad knocking your door to say, why are you paying the boy this amount of money? Yeah. And also the manager he's been training day in, day out. So why didn't he play him last season? Is it an ability thing? Is it doesn't think he's as good as the wingers that he's got? Is it another factor? Who knows? We don't know that because there's tons of things that we don't know. But basically, the money's all down south, and that's a championship team, a kind of mid-ranking championship team. They're not a big team. They're not like some of the bigger teams in that championship. So that's just where we are in the food chain, and this will continue to keep happening. And even if we thought he was an exceptional talent, even if we thought he was a kind of once in a generation player, he'd have shown that in the park first. He'd have to do that in the park. I mean, I was a huge fan of Aid McGeady at the time, and Aid McGeady I saw as a 9-year-old kid, and I couldn't believe what I was watching because I thought Maradona at that age can't be as good as this kid. And he should have been, I mean, obviously a fantastic career, but he should have been a superstar. He should not have been a kind of Wayne Rooney kind of thing. So if you'd have kind of when Ed McGeady first came through the team, and he was exceptional at the start, and you paid him maybe more than other players, you could say, well, he's a superstar in the making, this kid. You can't pay Rocco Vata, who's kicked the ball about 2 games or something, to say we're going to pay him. And I don't know what people are on, but what you just said there, there's got to be other players that are on that kind of maybe 12 to 15 grand. Pay them double, pay this young guy who hasn't kicked a ball double than you guys. That is madness. And then the other side of the fence, people will say, no, but we should pay that because we've got this money. Well, that's just madness. So if they want to pay him that kind of money, there's nothing we can do about that. All we can do is be sensible of what we do. And if we do find an established player, a Larson or somebody, and you want to pay him a lot more than other players, that's okay by me because he's Henrik Larsson. If you're a Jackie McNamara or a Tosh McKinley or a Morten Vikors and Larsson's getting 2 or 3 times your wages, that's because he's Henrik Larsson.
Yeah.
That's the one you can do that. But it's really, I think it's a dangerous thing to do when you start to pay players. And we had that chat, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, last time you were on, the Ryan Christie versus Tom Rogic discussion that we had. That was madness at the time. So you can't do things that will then perpetuate more of that, because the manager has to manage the squad. And what you want is kind of happy players who think they're all been treated fairly. And if you think they're not been treated fairly, then that creates resentment and what have you. But as far as Rocco Vata is concerned, he hardly played for us. We couldn't judge him. You have to put your faith in the manager. If he was a great player, the manager would have played him. And if he did play him and he was great and then we lost him, you can think, well, that's such a shame we lost him. But we don't know what we've lost.
The thing I'm going to say there, Jim, is I don't disagree with that. If you have on the one hand, on a Celtic State of Mind since the earliest days back in 2017, the discussion around youth development and graduates year on year breaking into the first team has been had. We then speak to guys on This Is Acsom on a Friday night, many of whom were involved in the old reserve league, and they speak about how detrimental it's been to Scottish football that we no longer have that bridge between youth football players and the first team, and it's hard to bridge that gap, right? So it's something I'm pretty passionate about, actually, because I don't think the academy, the introduction of academy football in Scotland has worked. I don't think it's worked for the clubs or the country, in actual fact. And I think we need to get back to some kind of reserve league, or Celtic just need to break out and take their team somewhere else. And I'm talking about the B team, because they're not going to learn anything playing in the Lowland League. So we've got to move them out of there. And even if it's, I don't know, competitive competitions against English football teams where we can take them down and play their football down there, so that we can develop them. But Rocco Vata, so he's one of the breakthrough players from the academy, and Kelly's the other one at the moment. So there's the 2 guys. What you do if you agree to these, not agree to the demands or agree to the expectations of the player who's maybe had his head turned because he's spoken to Brentford and he's spoken to Watford and a couple of teams in Italy, and they've said, we're going to give you 18, 20, 25 grand, whatever the fee is. If you agree to that, Jim, every graduate that comes in and breaks into the first team, there's your starting point, because you paid Rocco that. And that's a dangerous ground.
That's the dangerous ground, and you want to steer clear. I think football's changed in the last 40 years. A couple of things that come to mind when you were chatting there. The Champions League is such a game changer now. If you go back 40 years, winning the league wasn't such a big deal financially wise. It wasn't a big deal. Win the Scottish Cup of the league doesn't matter. Whereas the Champions League is where the big money is. And obviously we had that dead exciting last 2 months of the season where we had to win the league. You're not going to put young guys in that situation. So the money sort of for grabs makes it more unlikely you're going to take a chance on youth. Also the fact, and Chris Double-Denham and I had this chat last week about league reconstruction or having a bigger league or whatever. If you've got maybe another couple of teams, maybe another 2 or 4 teams in the league who are not as strong, then you might be willing to chance playing a younger player. And that's why all the other teams, the Hibs and the Hearts of this world, they all do play younger players than we do, because they're not chasing that huge, whatever it is, 60 million quid Champions League. They're not chasing a lot of money at all. So therefore they can take a chance. And I think it's about having an environment where you can take a chance in a younger player. But in this environment where you play each other potentially 4 times a season, and it's awful. It's just rubbish, basically. And the same 2 teams win the league. Because I would like Hearts to be a good team, Hibs to be a good team, Aberdeen to be up there competing, to make it exciting. Because it's not exciting anymore. And I've said this before about games at Celtic Park. If we're not 1 up after half an hour, everyone's starting to kind of, what's happening? And if we're 3 up after half an hour, the game's over. There's no in between there. We play Aberdeen or Dundee United or Hearts or Hibs at Celtic Park, and we don't win the game, it's a disaster. Whereas 40 years ago, if you beat them, that was good because they were good teams and you would drop points. And it'd be good to get back to that level of competition. We'll never get there because you alluded to that earlier. Maybe other teams aren't as well run as they should.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact they don't have a lot of money to start off with. So I'm off a bit of a tangent here. But you can't pay young guys silly money because, as you said, it will just encourage other young guys to, well, he get that, I should get that. And the first team players who've actually earned it, you look at the last 3 seasons, someone like Greg Taylor, say, comes to mind. You know, I know he's not everyone's favourite, but the amount of effort and that guys went through to get us 3 in a row, to get his cup wins, to get everything. Right. And this young guy's played 2 games. It's more than him. Thinking,
I know. Because it's like a 3-tier system with a Celtic wage structure. And you've got guys who are under 10 grand. And that was the conversation we had about Ryan Christie, for example. He was in that bottom tier. He was earning like 8,000 quid. So it's no wonder at that point that he was looking to move, let's be honest. Then you've got the middle bracket of 15 grand players. So at the moment, guys like Greg Taylor are in that bracket. They might be making 17, but within that middle tier. And then the top tier of your captain, James Forrest, and like you say, Tommy Rogic was up there. He had built that up over a number of seasons, a couple of new contracts within that time. And that's the way that we run it. So if you get a wee guy who's coming in at £500 as a youngster, and all of a sudden he's jumping up to 10 grand a week, which I believe was the offer Celtic made him. He's actually going to jump over. He's going to leapfrog some of the first teamers who are in that bottom bracket. So it is. It's a difficult one. But you brought to mind 2 things, Jim. I've got to get this out. I was in the local wee Tesco just down the road there last night, and I'm just about to pay for my Lucozade Sport, and somebody said, JP, a Celtic State of Mind. It was an Irish brogue. I turned to my right, and there's this Celtic fan. Big shout out to Niall Hickey. I then spoke to him for about 10 minutes, right? Turns out he's a pal of JP Mason's. He loves the show, and he mentioned the fact, Jim, how you were going on about embrace the title challenge, embrace the title fight, because a lot of fans really hadn't experienced, well, I say fans, within the last decade or so, hadn't experienced such a title fight. So a big shout out to Niall Hickey. I'm now also going to say, and this isn't just an opportunity to have a dig at them, right? But see, back in 2012 when Rangers went bust, there was an opportunity at that stage for both Celtic and Rangers to focus far more on their youth, right? So we went on a run of 9 league titles in a row, as we all know. We wanted it to be 10 and it didn't happen. And in that 9 years, every single season, we should have been getting graduates coming through from the academy, and they should have been playing a substantial amount of games. I'm not talking, Rocco Vata in 2 seasons has played 6 substitute games for Celtic. 2 seasons. He's 19. So that's not good enough, right? Every season, your 2 graduates come in, they've got to be involved in 20 to 25 games. I'm not saying as a starter, but how many times do we go out there and we're playing in the recent past, Ross County, Livingston, St Johnstone, at home, Dundee, and right, listen, no being complacent. You're expected to win the game at home, and you're expected to win it convincingly. So in the games, you should be giving these graduates 20 or 30 minutes. We didn't do that during 9 in a row. That just wasn't on the agenda. It wasn't on the table. Going to the other side of the city with Rangers, instead of just chucking money at Sandaza and all these absolute average, mediocre players. Remember him?
Oh.
Remember him, right? And throwing money at Ian Black and all these guys. They should have put all their focus on their youth and built something, right, that then would have been still bearing fruit at this stage, and they would have been producing footballers every single, and it might have taken them even twice as long to get back into the top league, right? But they would have done it on a much stronger footing, both financially and in terms of youth development. 2012 was a moment in time, and there was a real opportunity for both the biggest teams in Scotland to do something with youth. We didn't do it. We absolutely didn't do it, Lloyd, and we've not developed as a football club when it comes to youth. I mean, do you see the development up at Barneyfield is making a difference? Because I see a structure, loads of steel and all that, But I
Plenty of
still
space.
see
Plenty of space still kicking
so
about
lying
there
up
as well.
there.
It's
But
lying
it's
up.
all the
We've seen
same
that last week.
coaches. It's the same coaches
Mhm.
that are coaching the kids. It's the same coaches who didn't think Kieran Tierney was that great, didn't think Andy Robertson was that great. Actually, it's the same coaches that coached Callum McGregor, who never made a first team appearance until Ronnie Deila came to the club. So I do have my concerns about youth. And I think it's just come back to the fore, losing yet another young player who seemed to be very, very promising. But let's go back up to the game for tonight then. So we've spoken about midfielders, defenders, the goalie. We all know that Siegrist will be playing. Up top, yesterday I said Kuhn, Jim's pal, Kyogo and Palmer. I'm going all out. Do you see us approaching that differently? Will Mikey Johnston get a game, Lloyd?
I've got a funny feeling that I've mentioned Mikey Johnson will be getting a game, along with O and Kuhn.
Oh,
just to change it up
O.
a wee bit.
Big O. There's been talk about him leaving the club as well. That will put us even more into credit. Jim, if he was to go for 4.2, that would take us up to over £6 million made in the transfer window already. But how do you think we'll line up? Are we going to go strong?
Have we any young guys that play up front?
Well, that's a great question, because when was the last time we had a goal-scoring striker coming through from the academy? We've got Joey Dawson. He just signed a new contract, Jim. You might remember.
Joey Dawson, play him.
From Scunthorpe. Yeah, signed him from Scunthorpe.
Play him, play Kuhn, because Kuhn could do the games, and don't play Kyogo. No, my big concern, I talked about, will be stronger come 4 weeks' time, and that's notwithstanding potential injuries we might get, which could push us back even further. And I'm not happy about going to America. I get why they go. I get it's a money-making thing and the ticket prices are eye-watering, whatever. But I'm just concerned somebody comes back injured and a Mickey Mouse trip. I just not a big fan of. Obviously, not a big fan of these friendlies. But we need to wrap our players in cotton. We need game time and all that stuff. But I think you have to pick and choose what you. I think in a big glamour friendly, I think you can get the minutes in your legs. And going to Somerset Park, I'm going to Lesser Hampden. I'm not so keen that the jewels in the crown playing those games. And if I'm Matt O'Reilly, without trying to depress you even further, Paul, I could be on the verge of a huge move. Do I really want to risk myself in Somerset Park and Lesser Hampden? I'm not so sure.
What I loved, a couple of things, right? I'm going to tell you the best story I've ever been told about Celtic playing in America. But the other day, we were joined by David Elliott for the latest episode of This Is Acsom. It's going to be on the channel this evening. I'll upload it as soon as this is over, and it should be ready for 6 o'clock tonight. When does the game kick off, by the way? Hopefully I don't clash.
48.
I will be finished by then. Right. David Elliott said Tommy Burns would play in a public park. Any game of football, he was there. He used to play for the reserves, Jim. He wanted a game of football. Even if, for example, he might have had a wee niggle or he might be on the bench at the weekend, to make sure he was fit, he would say to the reserve team manager, who at the time was Bobby Lennox, I want a game. And he would play, and he would always play. But it has changed. We've kind of
simpler times. There are simpler times where but today it's all about, you kind of, as I said earlier, that if you're on the verge of a life-changing move, you don't want to do anything that's going to potentially upset that. You have to be a wee bit cautious about what you do, and I'm sure the manager will kind of share his feelings as well. Because from a club's point of view, and I know you don't like to hear it, we're going to get a lot of money, So if Matt O'Reilly goes down to Ayr and gets injured, doesn't get transferred, then we're not getting that 30 million. And his career, his life-changing move doesn't happen. So,
No, you're right. I know. I get it. I totally get it. I mean, it's a game at Somerset to open a stand, and it's a game down at Queen's Park. It's a bounce game. So, yeah, I'm not really expecting the big guns to play, but I'm sure some of the first teamers will. I'll come back to the American story in just a second. A few comments before we go. Joseph McGonigal, home is a good shout by Lloyd. It would be good to see him. £2.5 million we spent on him. If Siegrist plays this season, I'll bin my Fire Stick subscription. The Maltese Falcon. Brilliant. And Andy Lee, midfield of Lowell, Home and Kelly. That might be all right. Mm-hmm. Ben Summers, he spent some time last season at Dunfermline and impressed by all accounts. There's a lot of shouts for Lowell, Home and Kelly in the midfield. I would like to see that. Okay, so let's talk about this story then. Celtic, early 1980s are playing in America. It's one of these pre-season things. We played the Cosmos, and at the same time, there was a movie being promoted in America, Jim, in New York, called Escape to Victory. You might have seen it. And
Sly,
in that movie, Sly Stallone was in it. Michael Caine, the great
John
Ed
Walk.
Sarrentis, Dina Cemento, John Walk,
Bobby
Ozzy
Moore as well.
Ardiles, Bobby
Kevin
Moore.
Beattie. Kevin Beattie in it.
Was he in it as well?
Absolute shy.
So they were all in this movie, and there was a premiere ongoing. Now, Celtic, I don't know what the hotel was, but they were in this hotel where it overlooked Central Park. And what they would do is just go and train in the park. Nobody knew who they were. Nobody bothered them. They would go in there and get a wee training session. And it was Ronnie Glavin that told me the story. Ronnie Glavin, Roy Aitken, John Clark, at that time, the assistant manager to Billy McNeil, and a few others. They're in a lift. They're going to go back up to the room in the hotel. It stops at a floor. And who walks in? Pelly.
Yeah.
And Pelly's in the same hotel as the Celtic team. Everybody in the audience has heard this, hasn't it? And he turns round to John Clark once he obviously goes in and selects whatever floor he's gone on. And he says, Clark, number 6, 1966, Scotland. And John's just taking it all in, as he would. And then he walks out and they're all going, I can't believe Pelly recognised you, John. And he was just as cool as a cucumber. What do you think of that, boys? Pelly recognised John Clark. There you go. Because there's that famous photo where he's swapping shirts with Stevie Chalmers, Pelly.
Yeah, 66.
You'll have seen it. And he remembered John Clark. Loggy was John Clark's nickname, wasn't it? So there you go. There's my favourite Celtic in America story. And DC United, Chelsea, Man City. We've got all that to look forward to.
So what was it? Was it John Walk had a line in Escape to Victory? Was it John Walk or Kevin Beattie?
Oh, I need to watch it back, Jim.
And what was the line? What was the line? That's my bunk. Thank you. That's it.
Is that it? That's my bunk.
That's my bunk. That was it.
I thought it was going to be like Keep the Faith or something. No, that's my bunk. Brilliant. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Join us again half an hour before the kick-off time this evening, where I will be joined by Chris Doubledenham, McElwain, and we'll obviously know at that time what the starting 11 will be. I've got to say though, for anybody like our previous commenter who subscribes to a Fire Stick, you might be able to get Ayr United TV, and if you do, you will hear the tones. I was going to say dulcet tones, not the dulcet tones, the familiar tones of Jerry Taylor. He's commentating on the game tonight, isn't he? On Ayr United, yes, just at the same time as Acsom's gone out live. So go and enjoy the game and join us tomorrow. Join us on Monday where we can talk about it. All that's left for me to say is thank you to Lloyd, Patrick Jepson, and to Jim Orr for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks, Paul.